Hello everyone. Today we're working on Module 2, Lesson 16, and we're moving into division now. We're going to use divide by 10 patterns for multi-digit whole number division. That means that we're going to be dividing by tens or multiples of tens, and these are going to be fairly large numbers that we're working with today. Let's start off by dividing 420 by 10. And I have used place value discs this time. We're going to look at several different ways of thinking about this, and then you can choose the way that works best for you later in the lesson. Right now we're going to go back to using place value discs. So 420 is represented here by 4 hundreds and 2 tens. And then I want to divide that by 10. So when I divide my 2 tens by 10, I am going to get 2 ones, because each time I have 10 divided by 10, that's going to equal 1. So I'm going to go ahead and show those over here in my place value disc. So those 2 tens are going to be converted into 2 ones when I divide it by 10. And if you think about it, 20 divided by 10 is of course 2. And then for the next part, I have 4 hundreds that I want to divide by 10. And when I do that, I'm going to end up with 4 tens, because each time I divide 100 by 10, I get 10. 10 times 10 is 100. And so I'll end up with 4 tens instead of 4 hundreds. And when I add all these up, 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, plus my 2 ones, I'm going to have 42 total. Now let's take a look at doing the division on a place value chart. It's the same problem, 420 divided by 10, and that means I have 4 hundreds, 2 tens, and 0 ones. And if I divide by 10, since this is 10 to the first power, that means, and it's got 1 0, that means I'm moving each digit to the right 1 place. Since I'm dividing, it's going to get smaller. I'm dividing by a whole number. I have to make sure I say that, because you're going to find in a few lessons that when we divide by a number that's less than 1, we actually get an answer that's larger than what we began with. But right now we're dividing by a whole number, so that means our answer is going to be smaller, where everything's going to move to the right to get smaller. So that 4 in the hundreds place, and think about this, when we did the place value disc, that 4 hundreds became 4 tens, and those 2 tens became 2 ones, and I could put that 0 in the ones place over here in the tens place, but I don't really need to include that in my answer. I can just write 42 as my answer. And there's yet another way to think about this if we just change the units. 420 divided by 10 is actually that we're using the unit of 1. 420 divided by 10. But I could use a different unit, and I could change this 10 is 110. When we're using the unit form, we always want to look at the divisor and change that into a unit. So 10 is the same as 110, and I want to use the same unit over here. So I want to use tens, and I know that 420 is 42 tens, of course, and 42 tens divided by 110. So if I had 42 tens place value discs, and I divided by 10, I would end up with 42 of them, right? So that's going to be the answer when I think about it this way. And this one is really kind of a no-brainer since I only have one 10. It makes more sense to use this method when we have a multiple of 10 later. Okay, now it's your turn. You're going to divide 1,600 by 100. You can use place value discs if you would like. You can use the place value chart to move the digits from one place to another. Or if you want to think of 100, since I have a 1 here, you could think of 100 as the unit I'm using and figure it out that way. Write your answer on the Edpuzzle quiz, please. All right, now we're going to divide 24,000 by 600. And when you first look at this problem, you might get a little nervous because they're pretty large numbers. But if we forget about all the zeros involved, you can see that this is actually a basic fact, which is 24 divided by 6. And as we all know, 24 divided by 6 equals 4. The problem is we just have to figure out what place that 4 is going to fall in, or what unit we're going to use for the 4. So for this one, I'm going to think of 600 as 6 times 100, or my unit is hundreds, okay? So instead of thinking of this as 24,000 divided by 600, I'm going to think, how many hundreds are in 24,000? Well, the answer to that is 240 times 100, right? Or 240, I could also write it out, 240 hundreds in unit form. And I'm going to divide it by 6 hundredths. And I know that 24 divided by 6 would be 4, but I have 240 here. 240 divided by 6 is going to be 10 times 4. So that's going to equal 40. Now, since I have the same unit here when I do my division, then I know that whatever my answer is the correct answer, because I've already kind of pulled out those hundreds. So I don't have to take 40 times 100, because I've already taken the 100 out, the 100 out earlier. Now it's your turn. You are going to divide 180,000 by 9,000. And you can choose the method that works best for you. If you want to use place value discs, that's okay. They're kind of cumbersome. I expect most of you will not want to do it that way. But many of you do like using the place value chart, so that might work well. Or you can simply convert both numbers to the same unit, which would be thousands in this case, in which case you would have 180 divided by 9. So do your best, write your answer on the Edpuzzle quiz, and I'll see you in class tomorrow.